Hello and good afternoon and welcome this Friday to Accelerating Multifamily Property Revenue using Smart EV Charging Amenity Strategies. This presentation is given by Juicy Power. That's www.juicy-power.com. And my name is Kwame Afori. And I'll be your guide through this topic today. Now, before we get started, it's customary to remind you that this meeting is being recorded and being transcribed. So if you're uncomfortable with that, you may choose, if you'd like, to go ahead and leave the meeting. But if you're okay with that, please stay with us. The other thing I'd like to give attention to is the series of shapes that's kind of in the bottom right corner of your screen. So if you go to that series of shapes, you'll be able to access things such as the Q&A portion of our meeting. Right now, we have everyone muted, but if during the meeting you have a question, please go to the shapes, go to the activities icon that's on the bottom right corner of your screen, and choose Q&A and type your question in there. That way, we're able to give an accurate and timely assessment of questions and answers that will be handled after the meeting. There's also activities polls where you'll be able to respond to a poll as well too. So now that housekeeping is out the way, we can get started. All right. So I take it everyone can see the screen. Let's tell you a little bit about Juicy Power. Well, my name is Kwame Afori, and I'm the chief of charge here at Juicy Power. Juicy Power is a Georgia-based EV charging consulting, installation, and management company. And we're also a disadvantaged business enterprise within the state of Georgia. Our focus is local and premium EV charging solutions in and near Georgia communities. So our focus is the Southeast US. We've got over 20 years of experience in advanced transportation engineering and strategy, especially electrified transportation and autonomous transportation. And our team has over 50 years of electrical contracting experience. So what are some of the electrifying topics that we're going to cover today? Well, let's go over them so you'll know what to expect and what you can get out of this presentation. We'll go over some of the fundamentals that you as a leader need to know in order to implement strategically smart EV charging amenities at your property. That's number one. Number two, we'll go over the top 5 things that you'll need to know in order to make this happen, and how to use our GSO framework. That's goal, situation, and options to play in smartly. But first, it's usually comfortable and it's usually a positive thing to go over why it can be a challenge to actually install EV chargers and why everybody doesn't have them if we know that this curve is coming. So this simple video usually kind of gives a good overview on why. So we'll take a listen to that. And
electric vehicle charging stations, do they have to suck?
I mean, they're usually located in some obscure, out-of-the-way spot that's difficult to find, or they're floating out in the middle of some open parking lot at the mall like this one. Once you eventually get here, it's all very underwhelming. Places like this lack any distinguishing characteristics. It's just some, futuristic-looking kiosk sprouting from the ground next to a parking space. To top it all off, with public chargers, you're taking a gamble on whether or not the charger will work in the first place.
For now, visiting a gas station is just more predictable experience. While your average gas station is not exactly a destination or a pinnacle of design excellence, the form of the gas station and what goes with it has developed for decades. While they're not all great, there have been a few pretty good ones over the years.
Either way, it seems that electric vehicles are the future, and charging our cars in spaces like this will be more and more a part of our everyday lives.
There are now more than 3 million EVs on the road and over 130,000 public chargers across the United States, and it's increasing at a rate of 60% per year.
So the question remains, do these spots have to suck? I don't think so. And in fact, the successful conversion of automobiles to electricity will to some degree depend on getting this part of the ownership experience right.
Not only do charging stations need to be safe, practical, and efficient, they need to be at places that us humans want.
That's right. That us humans want to be. Now, obviously, you're not a gas station. You're a multifamily property leader. And that has its own unique challenges that we'll go into
Electric.
during this presentation. So, at least you think, what's wrong with public charging? Why are some stations underutilized and why are some stations full? Why do some properties get it wrong and some get it right? We'll get into that during this seminar.
Electric.
So, what are some fundamentals that you'll also need to know as a property leader when you're jumping into or you're easing into this electric vehicle transition and offering these amenities to possible customers, residents, tenants, etc.? So this video also gives a great overview of the different types of charging that can be offered to visitors or tenants or residents or employees, and gives you a preview of like how you're able to choose what type of charging can work for your use case.
First off, there are 3 types of technologies used in EV charging stations: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 2 and 3 are probably the ones that we're talking about here. Level 1 is a charging using a 120 volt standard outlet, and it might take a day to charge an electric vehicle. Level 2 uses a 240 volt outlet and can charge an electric vehicle in about 4 to 8 hours. Level 3, though, is known as DC fast charging. It uses high voltage DC connection and can charge a car in 30 minutes or less. So level 3s are the kind of places that you might stop on a long road trip or while you're out to keep things juiced up a little bit. And they require a larger footprint and more complex infrastructure due to those higher power requirements.
All right.
First off, there are 3 types of.
So we just went over what level 1, level 2, and level 3 charging are. Level 1 charging is your typical 120 volt outlet that you might see in your house. Cons are that the average charging time is more than 12 hours. So it's good if you only take an occasional trip every, couple of days or, once a day. But you'll be limited to that if you're a driver. So most multifamily properties offer for level 2 charging, and that's where our focus will be for this presentation. So that's 240 volts. It's what comes into your small buildings and most commercial plazas. And your average time is about 1 to 4 hours when it comes down to charging a vehicle. You can see the cost down there as well too, $510K per charger. And you're able to get about 19.2 kilowatts at the top end, and at the bottom end, for something reasonable, you'll be able to get 4.4 kilowatts. It just depends on what type of electrical setup you have at your facility and how much electrical capacity you have available. We also talked about level 3 charging, where if you're expecting visitors from the highway, from a freeway that are doing long distance travel on a frequent basis, that might be a good option for you. So you'll see this type of input into large malls, shopping center, manufacturing facilities, but not your typical multifamily property, where level 2 is usually most appropriate. You can see some of the stats down there as well too about what's good about level 3 charging, as well as the 10x cost it does compared to level 2 charging. And of course, you have to know that location and use case matter. So the typical multifamily property use case is for a resident who's charging their vehicle overnight, or a visitor that is stopping by briefly for several hours. So we'll focus on level 2 charging for the purposes of this discussion. So you're a leader. You're thinking about adding an amenity to your property. But where do you start? So that's where we're here to help out. What are the top 5 questions that you need to know, or the top 5 answers you need to know before starting? Well, ask these questions to yourself. Why? What? Revenue? Electrical supply? And financing, essentially. So why do you want to pay for EV charging at your property? What are those top use cases you want to support? Are you seeking to produce revenue, and how much? Is it important? How much electrical supply will you need? And how will you pay for that charging infrastructure, those improvements, that's amenity? So the first question we went to was understanding your why. What's your why? So if you go into your right tab, you'll be able to see the poll that's I'm just launching right now. You'll see that there's several reasons why someone might want an EV charger to their amenity. So if you're online right now and you're watching this live, go to the triangle, square, and circle that's at the bottom of your screen on your right-hand side. Click on that, and go ahead and send your input in terms of like why you might be interested in charging. You've gotten several answers there. One might be you'd like to provide a free amenity for your tenants and visitors. So basically, it's something to keep your tenants coming back and your visitors, or your tenants staying there and your visitors coming back. You might want to create a profit stream, an additional stream of income for your organization. You also might be able to attract and retain tenants as well too. You might want to do that. So basically attract new tenants and retain the ones that you already have, as well as increasing your property value. Now, just being competitive versus the other properties in your area. Increasing the value of your property by providing these amenities and providing this infrastructure that another property might not have. And it's already an added improvement to your property. Each of these different reasons require different analyses and different strategies. Now let's go into like what the future looks like for your property, and also looks for the future of vehicles in the United States in terms of the electric vehicle and hybrid vehicle market. This plot shows the market share of electric light-duty vehicles, those are your passenger vehicles, in the United States between 2010 and 2050. As you can see, in 2010, you had about 0% electric vehicles. But in 2020 and now 2024, we're about 6 to 7% of all vehicles on the road being electric vehicles. And we're talking about pure electric, battery operated, not the plug-in hybrid vehicles. We're just talking about pure electric vehicles. Now, as you can see, as you get out to 2030, that doubles to 15%. And then you get close to 20% by 2040 and 2050. And that's a projection range. Now, as you can see, it can be as high as 30% or as low as about 12%. So there's a little bit of wiggle room when it comes down to that. But imagine that this thing is going to actually increase somewhere between 2 and 6 fold over the next 5 to 20 years. And that's what you've got to prepare for as a multifamily property owner. There's incentives available right now in order to help you install this amenity improvement as well as operate it right now. So now's the time to strike. Here's another chart you might find interesting. So we talked about, and we think about electric vehicles as Teslas. We think about them as the Ford Mustang Mach-E. We think about them as a Porsche Taycan. We think of those electric vehicles that take no gas. But there's another type of electric vehicle called a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And that's also, you've got your Camrys, you've got your Honda Accords that have an electric motor as well as a battery motor, that you can, excuse me, a internal combustion engine that you're able to use for a powertrain as a driver. And the thing is with that is that if you have a plug-in hybrid, you'll still need or want to use these amenities provided by a multifamily property to plug in your car at night and get those miles during the day. So the point of all this is to say that in the US, EVs can consist of battery electric vehicles, those are BEVs, and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And those new car sales and those used car sales, those share forecasts are increasing in this chart from 2020 to 2030. As you can see, it starts off at about 500,000 in 2021, but actually increases to more than 4.5 million in 2030. That is a 900% increase. So for your residents, for your tenants, if you're an employer, for your employees, this is something that you're going to have to look at almost as if you were installing extra drinking fountains. This is going to be a necessity for your property in order to keep up with other properties who are electrifying and providing this amenity for their visitors. Otherwise, you may not be as competitive going forward. So seriously consider supplying these electric vehicle chargers, not only for those who drive those traditional electric vehicles, but also those plug-in hybrids. So they can be able to visit your location with care and convenience. So we talked about understanding your goals. What are your EVSE use cases? For a multifamily property, a lot of it's going to be tenant overnight charging. You also could do group charging. I mean, let's just say that you have a cache of 2 EV chargers, or 4 EV chargers, I should say, level 2 EV chargers that your entire apartment complex shares. And if one of the chargers frees up, I mean, one of the residents can go in and get their charge, disconnect, and be able to rotate amongst the group. Personal charging, we're talking about, okay, you've got a multifamily property and you might have a deeded or you have a leased charger to an assigned parking space. That's a use case that we see as well too, as opposed to group charging. And then you've also got visitor charging. So you've got a mixed use property, or if your residents just have visitors, you might have an open public charger that visitors are able to actually use when they visit your property as well too. So there's several use cases that are typical to multifamily properties. You just have to figure out which ones apply to you and which ones you want to service. And Juicy Power can help out with that. So now we get to the GSO framework, understanding your goals, your situation, and your options. And the first one is G, understanding your goals. Do you have revenue goals? Do you have indirect profit goals, or do you have direct profit goals? As you can see, some of the indirect profit benefits are increased tenant attraction, which if something's more attractive, as you know, in capitalism, we know that you can charge a higher price for that. So increased tenant attraction is a valuable thing. You increase your property value, which we talked about earlier. And you can also increase your tenant retention, decreasing the cost of turning over a certain property if you're renting it, because that person's staying longer because they know that they have a reliable source of fuel for their transportation. That's going to be a big thing. And you remember those charts that we actually saw earlier that showed the 9-fold increase in sales of EVs and PHEVs, as well as going from about 6% in terms of actual light electric vehicles to about 30%. That's 5-fold in terms of the market share. It would seem to be a smart thing to invest in this. Or you can talk about direct profit as well too. And that's where you get into estimators and getting a guidance from companies such as Juicy Power in order to figure out what are the direct profit possibilities here. Is it a reasonable thing? Is it something that I'm able to like add to my bottom line? And is it measurable, especially for a level 2 chargers? So you can use an estimator for that. So money. How much is it going to cost me? Big question. Well, that depends. Number one, you have to ask a few questions. Do you have the adequate power supply for the type of charging you want? Is your board, is your panel filled up, or are you going to have to add several new panels? Are your transformers adequate? Is your switchgear adequate in order to support whatever additions you want to do? So that's where an electrician can help you out, and that's where a Juicy Power team can help you out as well. Once again, do you have available electrical capacity? And of course, how will you pay for it? Do you know that there are incentives that can help defray the cost of installing charging infrastructure and the design? We at Juicy Power can help you out with that as well too, whether they're Georgia incentives, whether they're utility incentives, state, local. We'll help you out. We'll help you with your accounting team in order to be able to access those incentives and defray as much cost as possible. And of course, after the installation, do you have a sustainable business plan? Do you have a strategy in order to, like, if necessary, charge for your charging? Or do you figure that the indirect profit incentives outweigh the hassle of charging for volts, essentially? So do you have a sustainable business plan that will ensure that your amenity adds to your bottom line in the long term? Do you have, like, are you able to cover maintenance costs? Do you have a maintenance plan? So we'll help out with that as well too here at Juicy Power. And what is your budget? Is your budget 5,000 or is your budget 50,000? I mean, this can obviously affect the type of charges you get, the quality of charges you get, where they can be installed, things like that. And that's something that happens and gets figured out during the design phase to begin with. So need to have a good plan. And finally, the O. The O is understanding your options and adjusting. Weigh your options, contact an expert, i.e. Juicy Power, use one of our online revenue estimators, and use a Juicy Power roadmap to understand your options and adjust. So how can you contact an expert? Well, if you got a phone, I recommend scanning this QR code here, which will take you to our website /Linktree. And you'll be able to contact us and we'll help you understand your situation in order to at least get a good overview of what type of charges might be good for you and your property. So, and weighing your options. We help you weigh your options right now. Like during this class, this presentation, this discussion, you're able to like understand some of the options that are available to you. So, as part of the options, you should know the process of actually doing an installation and maintaining your chargers through the life cycle of the chargers. So here you can see an overview that takes you from onboarding through the estimate, through permitting, and all the way down to operations, management, and maintenance. As you can see, it's a multi-step process. It's something that we take you through as part of our Charge Connect process, as part of Juicy Power. And we help you seamlessly guide and make it easy for you in order to get to your fully installed and operational electric vehicle chargers. So let us make it easy for you. Here's part of the overview process. We'll make it happen for you. So you're into operations. You've got the chargers installed. What are some of the concepts and agreements that you need to know as a leader who's helping to manage these chargers? One thing Juicy Power does is that we help manage these chargers for you. So if there's a dashboard, we're able to like manipulate things like prices, timing, access, all on our end. So you don't have to worry about it. But there are some decisions that you'll want to like think about and also know about, some terms you'll want to know. And we've listed some of these on screen right now. You talk about tier pricing. You have different pricings for your residents versus your tenants versus visitors. Idle fees. Idle fees are in regards to like, let's just say someone stays plugged in and doesn't charge at a group charger. Is there a fee for idling beyond, say, 4 hours in order to maximize utilization? So a big thing is that you want to encourage desired customer behavior, avoid some unintended consequences. You might want to look into banning abusive customers. Is there a system to remove or a system to deter bad behavior? And of course, the contracts. You want to know like, hey, who's accountable? What's the default? How long it takes to resolve things? These contracts, these agreements exist to disincentivize bad behavior and provide a boilerplate or a grounding for rules and enforcement. So things like that, before you get in bed with somebody, you'll really want to like look into those things as well too. And start to think about those things so you're informed coming into this situation and installing this type of unique amenity, which will be ever more prevalent as we move in the next 2 to 3 years. So we talked about options again. Use a revenue estimator. You use this QR code that's on screen right now. You're able to actually estimate how much revenue your property is able to reap from electric vehicle charging. So you'll answer a few questions within the estimator, and it will instantly give you back a broad estimate of what the profit could be or the revenue could be from an EV charger, depending on how many chargers you install, where they are, what's the use case. So go ahead, scan that, give that a shot, and allow us to help you interpret that as well too. So once your estimation is done, give us a contact. We'll contact you, and we'll see. It's totally free. There you go. Allows you to instantly calculate possible EV charging revenue for your organization. And it connects business leaders like you to detailed EV charger planning solutions. And use a good roadmap. We talked about the roadmap that we actually provided earlier in this presentation. So a good roadmap can let you know what to expect in preparation, design, installation, management, and maintenance, all portions of that life cycle. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you definitely coming through and talking with us about electric vehicle chargers for multifamily properties. So what should you do next? Use a Juicy Power electric vehicle supply equipment revenue estimator. Use a charging roadmap. Contact us. Here's our email. That's info@juicypower.com. That's juicy-power.com. And look into attending our next webinars that are coming up. So what are the next webinars? On July 12th, we'll be accelerating sustainable accessibility with smart EV charger amenity strategies with Juicy Power. On August 2nd, how to access those incentives for business and organizations in EV chargers. And on August 23rd, the preparation process and planning for providing an EV charger amenity. Now, the July 12th seminar, really good for institutions and organizations. So if you're a governmental organization, institution, school, whatever, I'd encourage you to definitely attend July 12th. But if you'd like to learn more, also to come and attend the July 12th seminar as well too. So thank you. Thank you so much for attending. We're going to cease the recording right now and go into Q&A. That's juicy-power.com. My name is Kwame Afori, and I hope you found this informative, enlightening, and invigorating.